uh, the Litchfield County's new housing needs assessment tool. So again, thanks for joining us. Just a quick reminder, if you can, to, keep yourself on mute, I think, for the next few slides so that we can just cut down on a little bit of background noise. But a little bit of quick background on the Litchfield County Center for Housing Opportunity, in case you haven't already heard it a lot of times. We are here to coordinate a regional response to our housing affordability challenges by bringing together all of these various cross-sector organizations and entities, including our municipalities, our housing nonprofits, our other cross-sector partners like our Economic Development Corporation and commissions, anchor institutions like our hospitals, arts and culture, conservation organizations, and faith-based organizations, as well as our capacity building and resource partners like the Department of Housing, Connecticut Housing Finance Authority, LISC, and many others that bring much needed tools to the table to get things done and help us address these challenges in our communities. We are working together with our local housing nonprofits on a pipeline of 326 new affordable housing units in 15 towns. Some of them are listed here, and so we do have a lot going on. We have a lot of success stories that we can share with all of you, as well as a lot of great progress that is being made in our communities. So we look forward to continuing those efforts on the ground. Today, we are going to talk about this new tool and basically give you a little bit of some takeaways that we saw when we looked at this data together about, what is this data telling us, both for individual towns and for the county as a whole. And then Ellis from RPA, Ellis Calvin, who collected all the data for us and got it into this nice web-based platform that you're going to see if you haven't visited it yet. So he's going to sort of walk you through it and show you how to use it, give you some pointers. We'll talk very briefly about how this tool can be used, and then we're happy to take any questions, comments that you have about this new tool at the end there. So again, this tool was built by the folks at RPA, along with the Litchfield County Center for Housing Opportunity, supported by the Housing Collective, and with funding support from JPMorgan Chase. So what is this tool? And again, hopefully you guys all had a chance to click on it, look at it, sort of look around a little bit to see what it really looks like. But Ellis will show it to you in a minute. It is an online tool, as you probably saw, and it's sort of interactive. So you can click on your town or your neighboring town and look at the data and look at it by county as well. Again, the data was collected by RPA, and the analysis, the sort of text sort of explaining what the data means, is by us here at LCCHO. And what we hope that the housing needs assessment tool will do is help inform community discussions and planning around housing needs and solutions in your community. So again, we want it to be a tool that you can access whenever you need it, whenever you want that piece of information or data, or you're having a discussion in your community, or working on your town plan of conservation and development, or updating your town housing plan, or supporting or not supporting a zoning regulation amendment, for example. And so we just wanted to create this data tool for you. We'll talk about at the end various ways that you can use it. But I would say, if I were you, that one way to do this, to have it really just available to you to reference, is to bookmark it in your browser. If you're like me, you have 150 tabs open on your browser right now. I have this open, I think, 3 times. But if I just bookmarked it, that would be easier. And so I will follow my own advice and do that. All right, so first we're going to just give you a few quick takeaways that when we looked at all of this data, what were the data points that sort of stood out for us? The biggest one for us is just how many severely housing cost burdened households we have in Litchfield County and in each one of our towns. All of our towns already have many, many households that are paying more than half of their income on housing costs. And you may recall that if you're paying more than 30% of your income on housing costs, it just gets challenging to pay for all of the other things your household needs to pay for, transportation, healthcare, childcare, food, heating your house, all of these things. And so, if you're paying fully half or more of your income, obviously that's not a sustainable place to be. And so we do have quite a few households in every town. This chart here shows you the percentage of households in each town that are severely housing cost burdened. We also have another 12,650 households that are cost burdened, meaning they're paying between 30% and 50% of their income on housing costs. So there are a lot of households that would benefit from some more housing options that were affordable to them. Just as a couple quick examples, and Ellis will show you in the actual tool itself, you'll be able to sort of put your cursor over this bar and see not only the percent for your town, but also the absolute number of households in your town that are paying more than half of their income on housing costs. In Salisbury, there's 204 households that are severely cost burdened. In Winchester, which has the highest overall percentage of households that are severely cost burdened, they have 1,045 households that are in this category. And again, that could really benefit if we could help create some more options that were affordable in those communities. The other thing that jumps out at us when we look at this data is just kind of the mismatch between our housing stock, what we have available, the types of homes we have available, and the actual households that live in our communities. So most of our housing stock was designed for families with children, but most of our households don't have children. They have 1 or 2 people living in them. And we just don't have, I'm sure you guys are all very aware of this, but we just don't have downsizing options for folks or starter homes for young adults. And so, across the county, 66% of homes have 3 or more bedrooms, but in certain towns, a lot of towns, there's just even fewer smaller options. So for example, in Goshen, 84% of the housing stock has 3 or more bedrooms. And again, is designed for folks with families, but only 40% of the households need that much house. And so again, we know some people choose to have more house than they need, but we also know that many people want those downsizing options to be available in their community when they want an option like that, and we just don't have them. So our housing stock, again, really just doesn't match our demographics anymore. And again, starter homes don't exist. The type of homes that would have been starter homes, again, those smaller houses on smaller lots, and starter home prices don't exist anymore in many of our small towns as well. So this median sales price gap table is again in the housing needs assessment tool for every community. and Ellis will show that to you and how you can use it. But basically what we tried to do here is show you, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this line here, the dotted line, is what a household at 80% of the area median income could afford. And again, that's the income that a lot of the affordable homeownership programs try to target folks at that income level. So they can afford a house priced at about $250,000. But in most communities in our region, there just isn't anything at that price point. And anything that is at that price point needs like 200,000 extra dollars in work because it doesn't have a functioning septic system, or it needs completely redone, or needs a new roof, it doesn't have a functioning well, whatever. And so again, what we're seeing is that this gap between what a household at 80% of the area median income could afford and what the median sales price in is has been growing. And so this example here is the town of Washington, Connecticut, where the median sales price in 2023 was north of $1 million, which is quite a bit higher, even if you aren't good at math, quite a bit higher than $250,000. There's just no way to make up that gap. And so again, incomes have just really not kept pace with housing costs. And so we're just seeing a lack of, or basically non-existence of any kind of starter homes. The other data point that stood out to us when we were looking at wages, jobs and wages in Litchfield County. So the average annual wage of all jobs in all industries is $57,000. And so if that person lived alone or had a dependent, say it was a single mom or single dad, they would qualify to live in affordable housing since their income would be below the income limit for a single person at 80% of the area median income. So this is partly why I say affordable housing is workforce housing. And if you've seen our flyer, you know we have a whole nother webinar coming up in May about that. But again, the wages that a lot of folks earn that work here in Litchfield County would qualify them to live in affordable housing if we had more of it available. One of the other data points we have on there is the very long waiting lists that we have at all of our dedicated affordable rental housing in the region. So again, we've got a lot of folks that would qualify to live in affordable housing if we had more of it, but we don't right now, and that's the challenge that we need to work on. One other point I wanted to make here is that the folks that work in our communities, again, especially in these lower wage jobs, like the retail jobs, healthcare and social assistance jobs, those folks are competing for the same housing choices as people who are buying second homes. And again, there's just not a lot of supply out there. It's just very difficult for folks that work here in the region to compete with somebody from New York City with their income levels. So this chart here shows you the percentage in your community and also in Litchfield County as a whole of second homes. And Cornwall and Salisbury are kind of have the highest percentage of their homes in that second home category. In Cornwall, it's 32.8%. I think it's a little bit higher in Salisbury. And again, just shows you kind of what portion of your housing stock is folks that are likely only there seasonally or on weekends. So those are the data points that stood out to me. And now I'm going to stop sharing and we are going to hand it over to Ellis, who's going to screen share and sort of walk us through this tool.
Right.
Ellis, are you still purple?
I think I am still purple, so apologize for being off camera. My camera decided to malfunction right before we started. It looks like if somebody could let me screen share.
Of course, here.
Can I ask a real quick question about your slideshow, Jocelyn?
Yep.
Or all the slides we've seen so far, they are active and available in the assessment tool right now. If I went over there and
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Yes. So Ellis, I don't know, Lindsay, can you make Ellis a co-host?
Yep, you should
You
be
should be able to share now, Ellis.
Perfect. Yep. Right. All right. So as Jocelyn mentioned, I'm just going to walk through the how to use the tool real quickly. So one of the goals with this tool was not only to make the data easily accessible to folks, but also to put it in context. So not just the geographical context, so you can compare your town to other towns and to the county as a whole, but also put the data points in context in regards to affordable housing. So what does it mean that the 3/4 of the housing units in Litchfield County are single family homes, and what are the implications of that for housing affordability? So the page is laid out like a typical report, but then when you get to the graphics, we have a drop-down menu that allows you to choose your town or any town that you wish to look at. So for example, if we click on Litchfield, the town of Litchfield, we can see that the chart on the left updates. For this walkthrough, I think we'll use the example of Kent. And so you can compare your town to Litchfield County as a whole. In this case, we can see that there are a few more single family, greater percentage of single family homes than the county as a whole, but not hugely different, and also not as many as some of the other towns. We can see also, for example, that many more people live alone in Kent than Litchfield County as a whole, even though the number of bedrooms is actually not that different. So there's a lot of data in here. We can see other places where Kent stands out. The greater percentage of people with someone 65 or older, and that's grown a lot over the last 10 years, especially compared with the county as a whole. Many of the charts you can compare all of the towns to each other. So in this case, looking at the number of housing permits issued between 2000 and 2022, Kent, like almost every town in Litchfield County, the vast majority of the permits issued were for 1-unit buildings for single family homes. We can see if we were to update the menu, then it would change the highlights for some of these charts. We also have charts here where you can toggle between the percent and the absolute numbers to compare that. Here we can see the median sale price change compared to what an 80% AMI household can afford. In the case of Kent, there's been a 28% increase since 2019. In some cases, like Jocelyn showed the example of Washington, it's almost 100% increase. With vacant homes, a substantial percentage of homes in Kent are second homes, more than 17%.
And just to explain just very quickly, the census qualifies those as vacant because someone isn't living there year round. So they're not really vacant houses, but that's how the census
That's right. Yeah,
categorizes them.
vacant, it just means that they're not occupied at the time the survey went there. So on at that particular time. Let's see. So
Well, will you go back up, Ellis,
yeah,
to
of course.
the percent of employed residents commuting over 45 minutes, and then the other option?
Oh yeah. So here, in this case, we see the percentage of employed residents commuting over 45 minutes. So these are people who live in the town and the length of their commutes. So in this case with Kent, only about 11% of employed Kent residents travel over 45 minutes to work. On the flip side, the percentage of workers commuting over 45 minutes, in this case, this is people who work in Kent. Similarly, about 13% of those people, the people who work in Kent, travel over 45 minutes to get there.
So 165 folks who work in Kent are commuting more than 45 minutes to get to work.
That's right. And in some towns, it's much higher. In Bethlehem, it's almost 400 people, or 30% of people who work in the town of Bethlehem are have to travel over 45 minutes to get there.
Yeah, and we picked 45 because, that feels like an unsustainable, once you get much past 45 minutes, it feels like you're probably going to want to look for a job closer to home. But thanks, Ellis.
And as Justin also mentioned, there's some of these charts have extra data when you hover over them. So in this case, the percent of dedicated affordable housing, according to the appeals list, the 830G appeals list, you can see both the percentage now, or rather in 2022, compared to the percentage that of affordable housing in 2012 and the change. So we can see both the percent and the absolute number as well. See, so yeah, we have so much data, too much to kind of cover in this walkthrough. But one piece that is harder to find elsewhere, the housing related calls to 211. So people reporting housing issues, and the types, you can see the types of issues that are affecting residents of your town. And then with population and household change, one interesting phenomenon is that even though a lot of most towns, in fact, have lost population over the last 10 years, over half of them have still increased the number of households. So in the town of Kent, it's both a small increase in population and households, but there are other towns, for example, Torrington, where the population has decreased even as the number of households has increased. And that's true in many of the towns in Litchfield County.
Right. So because our household sizes are shrinking, we need more housing for less people, basically, to oversimplify it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, I'll just point out that all of this data is not only available in the form of these charts, but also at the top of the page here, you can just download all of this data as a spreadsheet for reference if you should need it. And I can show you what that looks like real quick. So as my contact information there, if you have any questions, but it has kind of each of the all of the data that's included in the tool here, just in a table format. So depending on what you need it for, hopefully this is a easy way to access it. And with that, I'll hand it back to Jocelyn.
Thanks. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we think or hope, how we hope this tool will be used. And then we will get to your any questions or comments you have. Again, as we mentioned, we're hoping that this will be just a helpful reference whenever you need it. If you're updating your town's housing plan, your plan of conservation and development, if you're doing an annual progress report about how you've done in terms of implementing your town's housing plan, which I know you are all doing, annually revisiting your housing plans. Right? Right, Ernie?
Yes,
Just
we're
kidding.
revisiting it, but they're not opening the door.
Yeah, well, we're working on it.
Yes.
So anyway, this will be good reference data because of course your plans have a lot of data in them, but sometimes it's nice to get a little bit more updated data. Or you know, maybe a question comes up in one of your meetings. We also, as you know, have hopefully you know, we've just put out a new playbook and toolkit for building community support, which it sounds like Ernie needs in Colebrook. And you know, sharing some of these pieces of data in social media posts, letter to the editor, e-newsletters, all of these tools are included in our toolkit. And again, we're hoping there's some synergy here between the tools in the toolkit and being able to use this reference data when you are writing that social media post or letter to the editor or e-newsletter. Or again, preparing comments for a public meeting, preparing to talk to your planning and zoning commission about something, or as I found recently, writing a letter of support for a local housing organization who was requesting funding, being able to, again, reference how many housing cost burdened households were in that community helped me write that support letter. And how many dedicated affordable housing options they had to help meet the needs of those housing cost burdened households. So again, we hope that you will use this potentially in conjunction with our playbook and toolkit for building community support. One thing that we want to emphasize is that as our playbook says, we don't want to just focus too much on the sometimes depressing data, but also focus on, you know, we can share the data because it is what it is, but we also want to share at the same time the success stories and solutions that we know are working here in Litchfield County, so that people don't just feel like it's a challenge that we're not able to overcome, because we do have those success stories and solutions. So we want to share those along with the data points. And finally, you know, again, I think if you bookmark this in your browser as something that you can refer back to, you won't have to go look for it, but it will be on the Litchfield County Center for Housing Opportunities website as well. So obviously you can always go there and reference it. But if you bookmark it in your browser, it'll be that much easier for you to get to it. And everyone could feel free to link to this resource from their housing organization's website or a town website. We're happy to have you hyperlink a link from your website to this interactive tool so that anyone can have access to it and look at the data for their community. Lastly, I just wanted to again highlight, as you know, this is the second webinar in our spring webinar series. The next one is called Affordable Housing is Workforce Housing. And it is May 23rd. Obviously, you can't click there on your screen to register, but if you need details to register for that, reach out to Lindsay or I. And again, we'll be looking a little bit again more into the details of who needs affordable housing. And we'll also hear about an exciting collaboration in the town of Kent to really understand better the needs of folks who work in the community, and also the volunteer fire and ambulance folks in Kent. So that will be an interesting webinar. So I'm going to stop sharing, and we've got lots of time for anybody's questions. Again, we can also go back and have Ellis screen share if you guys want to walk through any of those other data points. Lindsay, could you also put a link to the actual website itself, the housing needs assessment website, in case anybody wants to open it on a separate screen and take a quick look at it, scroll through.
You mean through LCCHO?
It has
Link
its own,
is the RPA website, the RPA.
yeah, that one. Yeah.
Okay. That should be the first one that was shared.
Yeah. Okay, great. So any questions? Anna unmuted herself. She's our, go ahead.
I always have questions.
Okay.
So Alice, I suspect that most of your data came from the Census Bureau, and I'm wondering if you have any comments about the reliability of data from the American Community Survey, given their small sampling size.
Yeah, I knew you would ask that, Anna.
Yeah, we knew this would come up.
So I would say not most of, I mean, a lot of the data is from the American Community Survey 5-year estimate. And it is true that in small communities, especially as small as Cornwall, Falls Village, Warren, you know, small community, small sample size. Obviously, as you know, Anna, doing the 5-year estimates are a little better than the 1-year estimate information. But we definitely tried in as many cases as we could to take data from other places. For example, the median sales price data is not census data. It's actually from the MLS. So there are quite a few data points in there that aren't based on those small, you know, sample sizes. And then obviously, you know, as you've heard me say, I think before, Anna, a couple of things, which is one, I mean, with the small sample sizes, obviously the story is going to be more accurate at the bigger level. So you can still look at the county data and draw conclusions that way. But also, it's just important to know what your data for your town is saying, whether you feel it's accurate or not, because that's the data that the state policymakers and you know, our Congress people are looking at when they make decisions. But I think, as you've also seen, Anna, what we usually do in the smaller communities is combine looking at the data and seeing what it tells us with doing some more in-depth research on some of those points that we know or that we think we're not really sure about. And there are ways at the local level to get some of that information. And including, you know, SurveyMonkey surveys of residents that can help balance that, all of that. So you probably just heard me say the same thing that I've said.
You know, your answer is very satisfactory. It's just a perpetual problem that I find a little frustrating. But the relative, the comparison between towns is, I think, also very helpful, even if the absolute numbers with this data isn't exact.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I mean, again, and I think I was talking to Katie about this. It's sort of like they're like indicators. They're not like absolute, and just looking at them in terms of how they are, you know, changing over time is also interesting. But yeah, they're just indicators.
Yeah. And I don't want to leave this with a sour note in anybody's mouth, because this data for me comes at an absolutely wonderful point in time. Cornwall's P&Z is about to try to pass some new housing regulations that are going to move beyond only permitting single-family homes in Cornwall. And we are preparing a media blitz. And guess who's going to be using this data?
Terrific.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Any other questions? Justin, you must have a question for us.
Well, this is a tremendous tool. Thank you. It's very powerful and very helpful for all of us, I think. Something that's not in here that I think would be very helpful is the housing production by decade, the U.S. Census data on that. It is shocking the amount of housing our towns built when the baby boomers were forming families back in the 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. In Kent in the 1980s, we built nearly 400 new units of housing, which increased the housing stock by 40%. And I think that's helpful in terms of talking about building new housing, in terms of putting that in context of what's been done in the past and what we can do in the future. And what happened in the 70s and 80s and 90s did not destroy our towns. That it was certainly a change, but I think it's important context. The second thing is the percentage of the dedicated affordable housing. I assume that includes the other categories under 830G of CHFA and USDA mortgages, housing vouchers, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be great to break that out into those.
Yeah, I was thinking that yesterday. I was thinking maybe we should just have it link straight to the actual table itself on the Connecticut Department of Housing website that does do all the breakout.
Yeah, having that, but also having the bars to sort of show individually the different categories is I think would be helpful.
Yeah.
It's like Kent is relying heavily on, of course, the true dedicated affordable housing in terms of hitting those numbers, whereas Torrington has a lot more of those other categories, the CHFA and USDA mortgages, the housing vouchers, those sorts of things. So.
Yeah, and some communities only have the CHFA mortgages, for example, and no dedicated affordable rentals. Yeah, that would be good.
But again, thank you. This is
suggestion.
Amazing tool. I look forward to sharing it and using it.
Good. Thanks, Justin. Beth?
Hi, I agree. This is a great tool. And I just had a couple of simple questions. One is, how frequently will the data be updated? And also, what is the definition of other vacant homes? Where you show
I'll answer the first question. Alice and I just talked about this yesterday. Ideally we will try to get it updated once a year. A lot of these data points won't change that much, but I think we're going to try to, as much as we can, keep it annually updated. And the other vacant, so Ellis, do you want to remind us what?
Yeah, I can talk about it. So that covers situations, for example, if a home is vacant because of like a fire or because it's in foreclosure, or what were some of the other things, like if somebody recently passed away and it's like there's issues with that. So it kind of covers all the little miscellaneous things. So it doesn't include, there's a separate category on the chart for homes that are vacant because they're either for sale or for rent. And so other kind of covers all of these other situations.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's like 12 categories of vacant units for the census. Any other questions or feedback about this tool?
Well, not that it will be constructive for anyone else, but I sit here with a great sense of frustration looking at this tool, because I have to agree with others. This is really a great presentation of this kind of data. I see in it many ways to begin to get through this. There's an incredible I mean, dense carapace around the heart of Colebrook against affordable housing in any shape or form. There's so many just knee-jerk negative responses to it. And unfortunately, it's populating the whole town leadership, across demographics of age, gender, wealth, and political registration. So it's really tough. And what this says me is, oh, wow, I finally have a great, utterly transparent graphic that'll show them why we need to do at least certain things, right? And yet, what I see in front of me is essentially a one-man battle against most of the town, because even the people on our affordable housing committee, they're largely there because they want to make sure that we don't do anything. And I had to trim it down to them to keep the more potent political influencers in town from being on it, like our planning and zoning chief, who is very much, we're about to do a new town plan, et cetera, as well as have a reval. And I was wondering, like, for example, one thing, I just, it's great. I'm just trying, I got to figure out how to use it best,
Yeah.
and we'll brainstorm about that next week.
We're gonna help you, Ernie.
I know. Oh, you've
And again,
done
it's
great things already.
and I don't know if you had a chance yet to look at the playbook for building community support or the toolkit again that recently went out, but that it is the long game, sharing this information with the public in various ways and just trying to get the data and information out there. And again, also the success stories and the solutions so that people can see what affordable housing looks like in the region and in the neighboring communities, and that it isn't scary. It isn't what they had perceived it might be. And so we just got to play the long game and keep getting that good information, the data and the success stories and the solutions out there in our communities. And we're going to be working on that together, right, Ernie?
Definitely. One quick question on a technical point. One graph that was particularly useful to me is I wanted to see, I believe in Colebrook here, and from working on the census, right, as a numerator and translator, I came across a lot of people in the Northwest. I was doing all kinds of different towns, who were switching from primary residence out of state to their second home becoming their primary, because they were moving work remotely to take advantage of a lot of towns in the Northwest were some of the safest places in the whole Northeast to be during COVID. Cornwall and Falls Village and Colebrook, et cetera. And we really think that we don't turn over many houses here, but the prices were just going through the roof as we approach a reval, and everybody's terrified that it'll be locking in for the reval, this artificial inflation. But if on our chart this year, coming down from about 417,000 per average median sales, right? It dropped to $240,000 per average sale. And I'm wondering where on the assessment tool can I find the actual raw data underlying that? I mean, I wonder if that's based on 2 sales in 1 year, which is not
right. Yeah.
impossible.
I mean, and that's what, I don't know if you clicked on the little, Ellis, it's Colebrook, right? That we put the little footnote in for.
Oh,
I will get that
I've
data
got it
for you.
open,
I'm not
the
sure if
whole
Ellis imported all of it into the. I don't think he has the number of sales, but I can get that for you. I am almost positive that is why the reason for that blip is there were so few home sales in Colebrook in 2023.
Yeah, I think we have the footnote there that says it was 7 homes, I think, for Colebrook. But yeah, we can add a link to the report, right?
All right, great. Thanks.
Yep.
I just want to note, if you bookmarked the first link that I shared in this long list of links, if you could update it. I shared the preview version. That was my fault. So the final message I just sent is the correct link for the housing needs assessment.
And if you guys are interested, we can also send you the slides from today, which do also have the link in it. That'd
be great. I'd love that.
Okay. Terrific. Anybody else? Everyone want to get on with their Tuesday morning? All right. Well, so we hope this will be so useful to you. And again, if you have questions as you're using it, you should feel free to reach out to us. Katie, I will give her the gold star. She looked at it right away. She got in touch with me. We found a little thing that needed fixed and we fixed it. And so again, we're happy to do that. If any of you have questions or see things that don't make sense when you take a look at them. All right. Well, happy Tuesday morning and hope to see you all soon.
Okay. Thank you very much for creating the tool. It's great. I love
Yeah,
it.
thank you very much, Jocelyn. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Jocelyn.
Thank you.